Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Welcome back if you've been here before, I should say, and welcome if you haven't. This is the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. Tuesday's episode today, and Tuesday's episode is all about you guys. It's all about the owners. It's all about the Porsche community. It's all about the Porsche passion, the Porsche passion as we call it. It's about the owner. It's about the owner, and it's about the journey to get your first 911, your second 911, your first Porsche, your first Boxster, whatever it might be, your 356. So that's what it is. It's been a great series. I've been really enjoying it. I know you guys are enjoying it as well. I know the listeners and you guys you guys are the listeners. I know everyone has been enjoying it. I know the guys that come on it are enjoying telling their story. And it's been fantastic. So today, let me stop rambling. It's number 26. Today I've got PJ coming in, and PJ is coming in as always. We're doing this through Zoom or via Zoom. PJ's coming in from the UK, from London. And PJ is I'm gonna say this in the introduction. I'm gonna ask PJ in this when I start talking to him. Two of his mates who have been on owner stories before, which we'll get into. One of them told me he's a true VW Porsche guy. He's got a love of classic Porsches. He's got a classic Porsche. He's heavily involved in the car community. So I think it's going to be a good one, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So we might go a little bit off track, off the normal sort of conversation points, see what PJ has to say. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get PJ. Let's start this one. It's Owner Stories, number 26, PJ, and we're going to get him on Zoom right now. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Owner Stories. Like I said, today we have an air-cooled story. We have a classic Porsche story. We have a good one, I think. We have a good one coming up. So today we're going to be joined by, and PJ's here already. We're joined by PJ, and PJ's coming in from, I'm going to say London. PJ, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. You are in London, right? I got that right. You were close to London anyway.
I'm in Reading, which is just outside of London. It's about 45 minutes on a good day.
On a good day.
Yeah,
not with traffic.
No, not at the moment. There's they're widening the M4, so it's been roadworks for years down there. It's horrific. Right. So 50 mile an hour all the way into London now.
I know what that London traffic's like when we're going. I mean, when we're in London, we're in Canary Wharf. And I know when we get the car from Canary Wharf to Heathrow, how bad that traffic can be. It can either take you 1 hour or it can take you 2 hours.
Yeah.
depending on the weather, depending if the tube is running, depending on so many different things.
It's not even a fun drive.
No, it's not. It's not. So let's get straight into it, and obviously the listeners are going to know the car that you have at the moment, which is a 356, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's going to be in the title. So we're going to get into that car, and we're going to talk about other cars that you've owned, and your stories. Cool. So I always like to start the PorscheCooled Owner Stories with the same question, and just get where it all started. Where did it all started when you started this love of Porsche, or this love of air-cooled Porsche, or classic Porsches, or just cars in general? Was it when you were a kid? Was it later in life? When did it all start for you?
I think I have always loved cars. Like when I was a kid, I had Hot Wheels and Matchbox. They were always lined up in my bedroom. I'd go to Beryl Motor Museum with my parents a lot and see all the cars in there. The Bluebird, etc. I initially, actually, my mum and dad, they did quite well for themselves. They came from a very poor background, but they did quite well for themselves. And when I was at school, they had started to buy nicer cars. Okay. Like, for instance, my mum has had a couple of 996s. A couple of Mercedes. My dad bought one of the early Cayennes. He bought Cayenne Turbo when they just came out.
Wow, nice.
So I actually resented nicer cars growing up. I didn't like them.
Okay.
I didn't like the smell. I didn't like the leather. I didn't like the attention they drew. I literally used to beg my mum to buy a more normal car because I wanted to turn up at school and be anonymous. I didn't want everyone to be like, why has your mum got the brightest headlights out of everyone on the school pickup? Do you know what I mean? I literally had that. I remember my mum had got, when she got the 996, she had, is it the xenon or the halogen lights?
Yeah.
And she came up to school and the lights shine through the window, and then some kid just punches me and like, it's like, tell your mum to turn her lights down. I'm like, why can't you just have a normal car? So I actually resented the nicer cars. I wanted to have a more normal car. And I think that's actually what drove me into the cars I fell in love with, which was initially, the most humble of cars, the air-cooled Beetle.
Right.
I literally, as soon as I could, I went out and bought the polar opposite car to what my parents had.
So you definitely didn't want a 996. So you didn't start with a 996. That's for sure.
Ironically, actually, it's quite funny because the 996 was one of the only cars that I didn't get travel sick in.
Oh, okay.
Because they had like a S-Class Mercedes, and man, going around the lanes in that thing, it just was like a barge. It was so wallowy, and I'd just be like sat in the back, just like I feel so ill. So, with the 911, I was always sat in the front, and, I had firmer suspension. And so I was, fine in that. That was good.
So you've experienced these better cars. You've experienced 911s when they were new. You've experienced the turbo Cayenne, which was like the top range, Cayenne, which was very good in its day, whatever generation it was, first generation or second generation. Mercedes-Benz, you've been in really good cars. And then, so that first having that during your period of growing up and what was associated with it. So then you decided, well, hey, I don't want something new. I want something that's got more character, more life to it, more, experience. Is it the experience or is it the character? It's the character, isn't it?
I think for me, I didn't want a car that was too show off. Like I wanted something humble. I wanted something that anyone could have owned. I didn't want to turn up and be like, oh, like people make assessments of you based on, I mean, like I used to turn up to my like ice hockey training as a kid, and I was the only kid that got dropped off in this Mercedes, and everyone would just look at you like, who are you? And I just was uncomfortable with that. So I started.
It's funny you say that. Let me just interrupt for 1 second. I was listening to Smoking Tire podcast, and I don't know whether you listened to it, with Matt Farah, and his father is very wealthy, right? He's Roger Farah, and he's been involved in fashion in years and years. And he said, people used to blame me because I was rich. It's not my fault. I was just born into this family. It's not my fault. You know what I mean? And it's kind of that same thing, isn't it? It's not like you don't love your parents or whatever, but it's like, I don't want this attention. I just want to have, something else.
Yeah, I wanted to just be anonymous,
right.
But my parents aren't famous, or, I mean, they did well for themselves, but they're not superstars. But when you live in a small place, and, we lived in a small town or whatever, and everyone at school at the time knew what my dad was doing.
Right.
Because it was Reading, we sponsored, I mean, probably need to go into what my dad actually did, but, we sponsored Reading Football Club. We sponsored BTTC, if I said that correctly.
No, we've got a good introduction to where you're going to go in the cars here. So let's just introduce what your father did. Let's tell the listeners what your father's business was, because you've told me already, and then it all kind of ties in anyway. So let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. So my dad, back in 1977, with his, friend at the time, the pair of them started the magazine Auto Trader.
Yes.
That was based out of Reading. They literally, my dad's investment into that company when they first started was literally all the money he had, and that was £500 to start Auto Trader. Yeah.
Right.
They didn't have an office. They used to, on their breaks at the Evening Post, where they both worked, John Medeski and my dad, Paul Gibbons, and they would use what they referred to as the Morris Marina suite, which was just their Morris Marina that was parked outside, and they'd go and have their meetings in that. And so John had come back from the US, and he'd got an idea from seeing other classified magazines in the States about doing something similar. So that's when him and my dad got together.
Tell the viewers in the US and in Australia and Europe, because we have a lot, what Auto Trader is. just explain to it in just a brief way what it is.
Yeah, sure. So Auto Trader magazine in the UK, well, now it's not a magazine anymore, but that was basically from the late 70s. That was the most reliable and efficient way of finding used cars and new cars. And it's still probably along with eBay, I guess, and stuff, is probably the most dominant secondhand car market in the UK, I think, anyway. I would say that most people in the UK have bought or sold a car through Auto Trader.
Yes.
Over the years.
And I'm not from the UK. I mean, obviously I spend time there now, but I know what Auto Trader is. It's just synonymous in the car world. Do you know what I mean? And as you mentioned to me, Mark that was on a few owner stories ago, his memory of finding his cars is through Auto Trader, and I think he mentioned it in the story. It's something that's in people's memories of finding their cars. So your father's obviously a car nut. Your father's into cars. He did this business, but obviously he has a passion for cars from the cars that he's purchased over the years, like you just mentioned before. So is that where your passion is growing for cars? Your dad's doing Auto Trader. You've got nice cars around your home, but then you think, okay, when I can get my own car, I'm going to get something more real, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, it was as much as my dad was into his cars, and he was, it was my mum that had much better taste in cars. Yeah. She loves cars. Like, my mum loves cars. My dad enjoys cars, I would say. I mean, it's how he, that industry is how he made his money. But I mean, he likes nice cars, but I wouldn't say he's a through and through petrol head.
Oh, okay.
Whereas my mum literally will, she'll be online like specking cars that she wants to get. She doesn't, but she's interested. She's into it. She loves all the old cars that I've had and still have, etc. But
so let's start on your car journey. Let's start on
Sure.
What did you buy? What was you talked about V-dubs, you talked about Beetles. Was that the first car that you purchased?
Myself, yeah. That was the first car that I purchased, and I still own it. It's 1963 Beryl green, right-hand drive UK car. I bought it maybe like 3-4 miles from my house.
Okay.
Just saw it at a show one day. I paid about £3,000 for it.
So you bought them when they were cheap.
I actually didn't have the money. I borrowed the money off my friend's dad. He gave me the cash so that I could get it that day, which was really kind of him. So that's now fully restored, supercharged. Yeah, fun little car.
So when you bought that car, it was just as per original condition, unrestored, no modifications, or had it been sort of,
It was a stocker. It was a stock car. It was still 6-volt, 1200cc, matching numbers. Apparently I had won previous things as a stock car. It entered in like Stamford Hall VW show and stuff like that. But I've never seen any evidence of that. So when I bought it, it was a good car, but a bit ropey.
Okay.
It needed love.
All right. So I'm going to just tell the listeners why we're doing this, because you've got an Instagram, right? And you've got images of that V-dub on your Instagram, haven't you?
Yeah.
So PJ's Instagram is PJ_Gibbons, GIBBONS. So check that out, PJ_Gibbons, and you can watch that. Watch it. You can look at the Instagram while we're chatting. Is that the green one that's lowered? Is that your?
Is it light green? I've had a few green ones.
The light green.
Yeah. That's the one. That's an original color as well, Beryl green. It's a bit of a weird one.
It looks pretty special. You've done a lot of work to that car.
Yes, so that's so I had initially I did it back in 2008, and then it's kind of had refreshes around 2013. That's when we put it on air ride and stuck the original Fuchs wheels on it. Those are genuine ones as well, genuine Fuchs, 4.5s and 6s, earlies with the hearts. I bought those for a really good price. You wouldn't get anywhere near what I paid for them now. But that was back in the day.
That's a car you're going to hang on to, though. That's not you're never going to get rid of that car. That's not something you're going to.
No, I've promised that to my eldest daughter. So can't go anywhere. No. But I am planning on turning it back to stock, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, you are going to turn it back to stock?
Yeah, I mean, like my life has changed so much since I built that car. I say I built that car. My friend Ian built that car. But I was just going to car shows, driving it there very slowly, dumping it on air, and then, sometimes coming away with prizes and stuff.
Okay.
But that's not really my cup of tea anymore. I've got 2 daughters, and I want them to have the same passion for cars that I do. So for me, it's my only proper four-seater that I could do the school run in. So I want to get it out on the road and make memories.
And they're quite generous. They're quite big inside Beetles as well. I mean, I haven't been in one in years. I mean, I have driven a few Beetles over the years, not restored, just normal Beetles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're an experience. They are an experience to drive. So what was it though when you did that car? So you're saying it was in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
You knew exactly when you bought the car what you wanted to do, or you just started? Is that when you started getting into that air cool culture and you started reading things and you started working out what to do, what mods to do, and how to change it?
I had actually always wanted a split window bus. That's what I wanted. But even at the time, a split window bus was considerably more expensive. And I wasn't really confident enough to get into something like that. I passed my test only like a couple of years before, if that. And I was driving a BMW Mini. So for me to go from that to a Type 2 was slightly intimidating at that age, but I ended up doing that anyway. About 3 months into the restoration of the Beryl Green Beetle, I bought a 57 panel van, and I then bought a 59 single cab. So I ended up with the two split windows anyway.
So you still have those cars today?
I've still got the 59 single cab. I sold that and regretted it after. I lost a wheel on the motorway.
Okay.
I was overtaking a load of trucks and I was just driving along and I felt the whole truck start to vibrate. Wow. And then the next thing I know, I was just on the rear drum sliding around the motorway. So I was like, maybe this isn't for me anymore. So I sold it after fixing it. And then 10 years later, after a long search, I managed to buy it back, and it was in Holland.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you have that. So which is the one on your Instagram? You've got I don't know which ones are yours and which ones are other people's here. So is it the open tray V Dub, or is it, which one are you talking about?
Yeah. So the single cab is the one that's like
with the flip down sides, right?
The rusty one. Yeah. That's my old single cab.
Oh, right. That's very cool. Very cool.
My pickup. Yeah, it's good fun, man. It's quite quick. It's got a bigger motor in it, and it's because it's so light. There's nothing on the back. But through lockdown, that thing was amazing. I turned it into a cinema for my kids. We did all their classes in it. It was the most useful thing in the world.
That's fantastic. So they got great memories of that. Then that's going to be great memories when they grow up.
Yeah, they. I mean, it hasn't got the best name. They named it Princess Truckee, which I don't think suits it, but it's still endearing. So
there's you like lowering the Volkswagens, right? They seem very low.
I like lowering everything.
How do you don't? And I know that I know you're mates with and I don't know whether I mentioned it, but you're mates with Nick and Jack, who have been on Owner Stories before. And I know Nick is lowering has lowered, I think, slightly his 912 that he picked up in the US.
Yep.
Any issues on UK roads when they're that low, especially with the Beetle?
Well, I mean, that Beetle, the 63 Beetle, at one point it was so low that I'd drive down the motorway and pick up cat's eyes. Do you know what I mean? But we re-engineered it so it wasn't quite that low. And again, that's one of the reasons why I want to get back to stock. I kind of got used to other things, other vehicles where it's like, there's a pothole. I don't need to clench. Do you know what I mean?
So is that an easy process, PJ, getting the Beetle back to stock? Mm-hmm. Is that going to be an easy process for you?
It's relatively easy. Again, I'm not very mechanical myself, but my buddy Ian of Ease Autos in Bisley, he's my go-to guy for VW stuff. He's extremely clever. So I can't do anywhere near what he can do. So I'm happy to put it into his hands.
Right. So he does all the work for you.
100%. Yeah.
Fantastic. So
he's sorry.
All right, so you've got the air cool bug. You've got
Mm-hmm.
you've got a few V Dubs. When does
Yeah, I mean,
do more Volkswagens follow? What follows? What
yes,
else is more come? Okay.
I've written a list if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, let's tell the listeners what you bought.
So going back to the 63 Beetle, I went VW Beetle, then Mark 5 Golf GTI,
Yes.
then Mark 1 Caddy, then the 59 single cab, then a 57 panel van, again, Volkswagen Type 2s,
Yes.
then a 58 panel van, then a VW Mark 1 Golf 1977 that only had 27,000 miles on the clock. That was an absolute gem.
And you've sold that one?
That was awesome. I did.
You should have kept that one.
I should have. It was a proper early Series 1.
Yeah.
Original paint, original interior.
Sought after.
I know where it is. I know where it is, though. So this is a bit of a regret, this next one, because I bought a oval window ragtop Beetle that had come in from California. It was black.
Okay.
That car came with a 356 engine in it.
Okay.
And I said, I don't want to pay for a 356 engine. Give me the car without the engine. It took about $1,000 off the car.
Right.
It took about $1,000 off the car, and I was like, perfect, I'll take it. So I could have got it was a 57 oval Beetle with a 356 engine for $7,000 at the time. Okay. I was like, nah.
We all have regrets. We all have regrets.
Yeah. Then I went into a 65 Carmen Ghia. That was quite nice. That was low mileage, 40.
How was the Carmen Ghia? I mean, everyone loves the Carmen Ghia because everyone loves the shape of it, right? And everyone associates it with being like a Porsche. Is it a good car to drive? I've never been in one. Is it a good car to drive?
So smooth. It was lovely. It was such a nice cruiser car. Like, I wouldn't do much else with it, but it was a lovely cruiser. You could just, sun's out, just go for a nice drive. But, I didn't do too much with it. That was bone stock. I was going to do a restoration on it, and it was just a bit too far gone for me. It had lived by the sea its whole life. Only 45,000 miles on the clock. But
right, so it was pretty
living by the sea. Yeah. And it had been like one owner, and he had done all sorts of dodgy stuff to it, like gluing like floor mats to the seats. And
that's the problem with old V-Dubs, isn't it? And old Beetles and stuff. They really do need a bit of work because people have really, let's say, bastardized them. They've sort of like, they were cheap and they just did whatever they thought was cool to the car. So it's a bit of work. I always remember not the Carmen Gears, and we're going to get onto your Porsche in a second, but I always remember, I think it's the Fastback. Is it called the Fastback 1600, the V-Dub? I remember a friend had one of those, and I thought at the time it was like, and I remember they weren't that cheap, and it was the coolest. I thought it was the coolest looking car at the time.
They look a little bit like a Porsche, but not quite. It's not quite as good looking, I'd say. But yeah, they're pretty neat.
Yeah,
I think Type 3s were fairly big in Australia, weren't they? Like, they were quite popular.
Yeah, they were.
Like squarebacks and stuff.
Yeah.
So the VW list continues.
There's more.
There is. I then got a 65 Camper Westphalia. That was awesome, from California as well. Then another Golf, then a Sirocco, then another Golf, and then I had a VW Caddy van as my daily driver. Okay. And that kind of leads on to the 944 that I first bought.
Okay. I didn't know about the 944.
That was...
I knew there was a 912 in there somewhere, but I didn't know about the 944. So we'll get onto that. So what is it? The listeners are going, what is it with you and Volkswagens? What is the appeal of the V-Dub?
I just think they're a lot of fun. There's... I don't know if this is the right thing to say. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
There's like no whiff of arsehole about a Volkswagen.
Right.
Like, they make people happy. They make you happy when you're in them. Unless they break down or catch fire or you lose a wheel on the motorway. But they're just a nice thing to be in. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, actually. It's kind of weird because you bought your first one in, was it 2008, you said? 2008?
Yeah.
2008.
Yeah.
So they weren't as, fashionable, let's say, in 2008.
No.
How do you think now, though? Has it changed a little bit, this V-Dub culture? Has it become a little bit too, the people coming into it a bit too fashion? Has it taken something away from the car, or you think it's still as good as ever?
I think it's better personally. I think the culture has grown, and I think there's been a lot of influences from other stuff with the internet. Back in 08, I was on forums and stuff, and Instagram. You get more inspiration from everywhere else, and I think there's a slight shift in that. When I first started getting into VWs, it was people with like hand knitted woolly hats, and it was very hippie-ish. And now it just feels a little bit more normal. I was never into, rainbow woolly hats and stuff. So I don't know. I really don't know.
There's lots of restorations. I mean, I know even on YouTube, you look at it and there's quite a few channels of people doing restorations on the buses, especially because the buses are so popular. There's that guy there's that guy in the US, isn't there? The guy that's got the collection of the buses, like he's got such a huge. That guy.
Fluffy? The comedian.
Yeah, which is just insane how many he has. Like it's just crazy. So you're driving the VW, and then you think, okay, it's air cooled, it's German. What about Porsche? Why does Porsche come into you? Well, I know it makes sense, but what made you buy a Porsche?
Yeah. So I bought the 944 because I was recently single and my daily driver was a caddy van. And I thought, man, I can't rock up to a date to take a girl out and be like, come get in the caddy. It's like, I don't know. I just didn't send the right message. I was like,
it's a bit like the panel van in Australia, the surfing culture panel van. It has the same connotations. Yeah.
I wanted to be a little bit more suave. I was like, I don't know how to pick up girls. Maybe this will help. I don't know. But I also really wanted the car. It wasn't just motivated by girls. It was like, I wanted a 944. I love pop out headlights. I like cars from that era. And I just happened to find the one that I loved, but it was quite a leery car, man. It was Alpine white S2 with cobalt full leather interior.
Okay.
It was different, man, but I loved it. I loved that car. I'd happily buy another one.
So how many years ago did you buy that car? How many years ago? 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
2013 I bought that car.
So still at a reasonable price. Still at a reasonable price for 944s at that point.
I think I paid $7.5 for it. It had done under 100,000 miles. I bought it from a company called Forster. They sell good cars, and I just thought, I want to find a good car straight away. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm looking for, so they actually had a stack of them at the time. I could go and pick one. I was like, this one or this one. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, they had
So you know a lot about VWs, you know a lot about Beetles, you know a lot about Volkswagen buses and caddies and Siroccos and all these things. When you go to get this Porsche 944, how do you know you've got a good one? How do you know that's the one you want to buy?
So I trusted them as a company because they are very meticulous about what cars they take on to sell. It has to be solid. It has to have a good service history. This car literally came with a service history that was, like as tall as I am. Everything was there, spare keys, tools, everything was there. And I was just like, this seems about right. I'd seen enough VWs and stuff to know what rust looked like or what rot looked like or what a bad engine what signs there would be. Man, it was probably the best car I'd bought at that point.
Okay.
In terms of being complete and solid, and man, it had like a purpley blue interior. What could go wrong?
Yeah, it's an interesting color. So you get the 944. First thoughts after when you start to drive it, when you drive it away, or when you first get a chance to drive it properly, compared to your Volkswagen to the Beetle. What was the first thoughts?
It was just a completely different vehicle, man. It felt so torquey. It was just solid. It felt great. It needed nothing as well. Like for me, I'm used to projects where, you pull in old toenails out of the carpet. This was like a nice car. I was like, I've arrived. Do you know what I mean? I felt good. I felt good in it. And my housemate at the time, he's really into Fords, and he had a 67 Mustang, and he'd always been giving it the big one because I drive slow Volkswagens, and then it's like, well, let's see how it is now. And he got in it, and he was like, man, that's amazing. I like that car. So he got his seal of approval.
So when you have the 944, what else is in your garage then? You've got the Beetle. You've got a couple of the buses. Have you?
No, at that point I had the Caddy, which was my work vehicle. Then I had the Westphalia, the 65 Westphalia bus. That's the camper from California.
Yes.
And my 63 Beetle. And then I bought a really interesting project in that summer. I bought I think you'll quite like this story because, again, it's because I know you're looking for a 912.
Yes.
And this is the story of a car that I basically bought on Facebook without seeing at all. I just saw some really blurry photos of it.
Okay.
And I put my trust in someone whose opinion I valued. But I bought a barn find 1950/51 patina, very patina split window Beetle from Sweden. Original paint throughout, original interior.
Okay.
Basically, I just trusted who had recommended it, and that was that. If I'd have been...
A friend recommended it, or someone who's a bit of a VW specialist? You don't have to say who it is, but someone who's a bit of a specialist, and they said, this you should take this up?
Oh, he was 100% a specialist. He was the editor of Volkswagen magazine at the time.
Okay.
And he had been like, yeah, man, I messaged him. He was like, yeah, this is a good car. You'll be mental to not get this. I was like, well, can I knock them down on the price? And he was like, I wouldn't. The price is fair. You're going to get it. If you get it, you'll be happy. And I was 30 seconds before the next person tried to buy it. And if I'd missed it by that 30 seconds, I wouldn't have had the car. But I mean, to put it straight, I bought that vehicle for like 12,000 euros.
Okay.
Delivered. You wouldn't even be able to get much of a car for that now.
No
It was
way.
a really good purchase.
So when it arrived, how was it? Was it okay?
Oh, it was a mess of mice and mice wee. Oh, it was
Really?
nasty, man. It was beautiful because like that's what I was looking for. But at the same time, the headliner was falling off. It stank of damp, and actually it gave my house a mouse infestation. So
yeah, I was worried about that because when you bring cars in, I've read stories of this where there's still things living in the cars. You know what I mean? And I know in Australia, when you bring cars into Australia, like I was looking at, importing a car into Australia, obviously a 912, if I wasn't going to bring it into the UK, and that's why they have to get them. You have to get them, steam cleaned underneath before they can be shipped there, and then they have to be completely cleaned out.
That's great.
Quarantine.
That's great.
Quarantine things. But I want to know. I'm interested actually because you get this car, it's full of rats. It's a mess. What you wake up the next morning, you go, okay, I'm going to start work on this car. Do you start work on it? You think I'm going to strip this car out before it does mechanical? What is your process when you do that? When you get a car like that?
So basically, I didn't really do much to it. I was like, this interior is beautiful. It was disgusting, but beautiful. So I hoovered it, etc. Very gently. I mean, these seats were made of wool and they were from 1950.
Yeah.
Like they were thin, and I wanted to keep them. They were itchy though. I didn't want to damage them. I wanted to preserve them. So I did everything very gently. Like we really, you'd find there was a massive tear in the headliner that was only on one side, and it's like you'd knock it and you'd feel all this weight in it of whatever was in there.
Wow.
So I kind of just stuck gloves on, stuck a hoover up there, and then whatever was still heavy I kind of grabbed and put straight in a bag and ran away and closed the door. But man, that car, I mean, it turned into such a cool car, man. That we fully restored it underneath, like fully restored it. It ended up with disc brake conversion. The welding that it needed on the body wasn't to do with like water or weather. It was to do with where the rats and mice had made their homes.
Oh, right.
So
Really?
getting the panels for those particular areas were bizarre. But, you know, it wasn't a case. It was the idea with that car was to make it look like a car that had been modified, you know, somewhere in its lifetime, but not currently. So I had some original gas burner wheels, you know, Porsche gas burner wheels.
Yes.
In completely original condition, matching wheels. I stuck those on it. And then we built a pre-A 356 motor for it.
So you spent quite a bit of money on it, or not really?
Yeah, I did. Definitely did. It was a big investment. But it was an incredible car. Like, yeah, it was amazing. Again, you know.
So where is that car now? You didn't keep the car. You decided you did this work on it. It drives well.
Yeah.
It's got the character. It's, you know, it's a very rare one. So what?
It was perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. So what made you move that one on? Because you don't have that one now, do you?
No, we don't. But I sold that. That kind of ties into the next couple of cars. So maybe we can come back to that. I think,
yeah, sure. Yep.
It ties back in, but
yep.
I'll remember to mention it. But
okay.
Basically, so also if I then my buddy Simon Medleycott, who is a big Porsche enthusiast here in the UK. He's a talented photographer as well. He bought a 912, and me and him had gone camping everywhere we'd been around Europe, the UK, like we were mates, you know, his wife and my, you know, now fiance were good friends. And we used to go off in our camper vans together. And then one day Simon's like, oh, I've sold my Westphalia. I'm like, okay. And he's like, and I've bought this. And I'm like, what have you bought? And he showed me a gray 912. And I'm like, okay. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I was so into VWs. I was like, why have you bought that? That's like not a cool car. Like, I was like, are you going to lower it? Are you going to, you know what I mean? Like all the standard VW stuff I was so used to.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
No, it is what it is. I was like, oh, well, you should have kept your camper, mate. That was my opinion,
where did he find the car? Did he buy it locally in the UK, or he got it shipped from the US?
California.
California car.
So he I forgot the name of the guy that came from. He does a TV show. I forgot his name.
Okay.
There's a TV show called Sticker Shock.
Oh, okay.
In the States.
I'm not sure. So your friend still has that car? He still has the 912?
No. So here's where it gets interesting. So Simon's like a few months later or whatever, he's like, oh, I'm going to go traveling. But I've got to sell. I was up visiting him. And he was like, I'm going to go traveling, but I've got to sell the 912 to fund it. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Have a nice time traveling. He's like, you should have a go in it before I sell it. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested in this car at all. He's like, go on, just have a drive. Like, he took me out in it and he was like, just have a drive. I was like, man, okay, fine. Let's switch. I'll have a go. Man, I fell in love. It completely changed my opinion.
Really? I'm interested
100%.
actually, PJ. I'm interested though why you weren't interested in it at all, because it is a 911, right? It's the 911 body. And you weren't a fan of 911s in general? You weren't a fan of Porsches? Is that what it was? Or you just thought they were a bit, you still thought they were too flashy, even though they're old and it's a classic one?
I don't know what it was, man. I think I just thought it was a bit like, I've always wanted a 356. So to me, I was like, well, like I didn't even know what year the 912 was. That could have been, at the time, that could have been like 70s or something. I was like, for some reason, it didn't capture my imagination, that particular car. And I don't know, I kind of thought it was a bit like going from like modified stuff that we had and the lifestyle, the VW lifestyle is very relaxed and chilled. And then I was like, you're going into like a classic car, like you're going to start wearing tweed and stuff.
So it's a bit boring. It's a bit boring. Yeah. It's a bit
sort of.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. So what was it though? Tell me.
Wrong.
You were wrong, yeah. And I think you're
wrong.
So
I was so wrong.
When you got into that 912, you got into your mate's 912. What was it though that how long before you were driving it and it's like, when did it sort of click that this was okay? What was it? What was it though? Can you remember?
Man, it was shifting. It was everything. Literally everything about that car changed every opinion I had of every car in a second.
Okay.
It blew my mind, man. Like, I was like, I can do.
Was it 5-speed or sorry?
It was, yeah, it was dogleg. And I was like, I can do corners. Like, I was used to like slammed buses, like, you know, like the steering wheel was like sideways and as big as a, you know, huge Domino's pizza. And then I was in this thing and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever driven. So I made an offer and that was that.
Fantastic.
I bought the car.
So you bought that one?
I did. Yeah. I bought
Great.
the car that I had claimed was the most boring car in the world. And I didn't understand why you bought it. And then
fantastic.
That was that.
So what, so you had that, so you got the 912, you still got the 944.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had the 944. I sold the 944 not long after buying the 912.
Okay, so
because at that point I had a 912, a split window Beetle, a camper van, my 63. I just had too many cars, and all of them were starting to need more attention. So
I'd like to see your garage. Actually, you must have a very large parking area for all these cars.
I sold most of them, man. And I sold most of them because I wanted to buy the car I've ended up with.
So let's stay on the 912 for 1 second, though. So the 912, you've got the 912. Best things about the 912 during the ownership period. What did you like the most about it?
Oh man, it's just so ironic how I didn't get that car at all, and I loved every second of owning that car. Like, I made really good friends with it. That's how I started to know Jack Dudman and Flat Six Jack. You know, like me and him had a mutual friend, and we both sat looking up. We both had babies around the same time. We sat with these babies, and then I'm like, "Oh, what'd you do?" He's like, "Oh, I work at Porsche." I was like, "Oh, I have a Porsche." He literally scooted himself over to me, and you know, since then we've been mates.
But I think I need to have Jack on this podcast because
you definitely
because
do.
There's yourself, Nick, Jack, Sunburnt Lobster, Ajmal, Flat Cap Driver. Everyone uses Flat Six Jack. I know he listens to these every now and again. I think he needs to come on the podcast and talk about.
Yeah, you should definitely get him on.
The work on these cars that he's doing. So
yeah, you definitely should.
Okay, so you got the 912.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the same.
You're loving the experience.
At the same time, my split window Beetle is still being built, and that 912 100% influenced that Beetle because initially, like, it wasn't going to be the car it was. It was going to be slammed. It was going to be on air. It was going to be the same as all the other cars I'd built. And then all of a sudden it was like, I know what a driving car is like now. So that's when it went down more like I'd call it an outlaw Beetle, man. It was designed to go fast and drive, and it was a lot of fun. There's videos of that on my Instagram if you want to have a look.
Okay, I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, listeners should check that as well. So you've got the 912. You sell the 944 because you picked up the 912. Mm-hmm. You don't need to have that many cars. You've still got the split window. What happens? What goes next?
So what sold? I sold everything really, apart from the 63 Beetle, because I then tracked down my 59 single cab, and I was like, I need to buy this back. That 59 single cab was one of the ones that got away for me. Had the same build date as my birthday, so I knew it was that car. So I bought that back. So I was like, well, I don't need 2 split window buses. So I sold my camper van, much to my kids' dismay, because that was like a playhouse for them. So
PJ, you had to sell these cars purely to fund the one you wanted to buy back, because the one you wanted to buy back has appreciated. It's gone up in price. You now have to fund it, or is it just because you had too many?
So those original 3 cars I bought, the 63 Beetle, the 57 panel, and the 59 single cab, I got all of those vehicles together for under 20 grand.
Okay.
And then to buy back my truck, it in the end was like 21,000 just for the truck. And I was like, it's brutal. Over 3 times what I sold it for.
Really? To the same person? You bought it back? Oh, okay. So he's smiling now.
Yeah. You know, it's okay. I got it back. So, and it was a fair price. So it was a fair price, but I wish I'd kept it. would have been cheaper.
So everything's gone. And then you think
Yeah.
you've still got this 356 dream, right? Because you wanted a 356.
Oh, no.
You mentioned before that the 356 was something
Yeah.
that you wanted. It wasn't a 912. You didn't get the 912, that 911 body. You wanted the 356. So
Yeah, I mean, now I get the 911s and I get 912s. But it was something that I guess I had to grow up a little to appreciate it. But yeah, the 356 has always been, as long as I can remember. The first time I saw a 356 was a picture of it. It was a picture and it was next to a Carmen gear. Because obviously I found everything through VWs and I was like, man, what is that? Like, then I had to do a bit of research and find out. And I thought, I don't know, man. There was just something about it. The shape, the simplicity, like it was everything I would have ever looked for in a car.
See, I find this interesting, Mira, because for me, and I think I might have mentioned this because I've had two 356 owners on owner
I've
stories,
listened
right?
to them.
So we've got Mark from Mark and Cars who has the YouTube channel, who has a 1960B, right? 356B. Yeah, 356B. And then Todd, Stone City Outlaw, who's working on his at the moment, who's a really nice guy. Maybe you should contact him through Instagram.
I have.
You have?
I did.
Yeah, because he's working on his, and his project is, I think that's going to be a good one. And he obviously found that one he found was a good find, wasn't it? That T1, that 6 was it 57, right? 57 T1.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I when I was listening to the podcast, he was like, his car was one of the last T1s to be built, right? And mine and his cars are built about 3-4 days apart from each other.
Okay, so let's tell exactly the listeners, because we're skipping things with you because you've got so many cars, and the listeners always like the format of this podcast. But you've got so many cars, and you've had so many cars, and I didn't know you had that many. I knew you had a few, but not this many.
Sorry.
But let's just go to the 356. And my point I was going to make, and I think I made it to Mark at Mark and Cars, is that I find it very strange because you said that you thought that the 912 was like an old person's car. It was tweed. It was that classic sort of thing. And that's how I see the 356. You know what I mean?
It's funny, isn't it?
And it's a bit weird now. I appreciate the 356 more now, but in a way, I'm still struggling. I still like the 912, early 911 better. But I do see the appeal of the 356, but it's interesting how, our views were sort of, similar, but mine was more for the 356 shape. So let's tell the listeners exactly about your 356, because this is the latest car, and this is the main car, I guess, of your owner's story. What did you find, and how did you find it, and what process did you go through?
So I found the car on eBay. I think it was advertised on Trader as well. But I found it on eBay, and initially I'd looked at it and gone again. I was like, that could be a nice 356, but it's a bit boring. And I remember showing June, and I was like, what do you think of this one? And we were both looking at it like, oh, it's uninspiring. So first impressions weren't good. But I've always been someone that likes to find a car that doesn't quite hit the mark, and then almost to prove what it could be, if that makes sense. So we'd seen it, and I looked at it online in quite detail. I'd had a look at all the detailed photos as well, and I could see this thing, it needed attention. It definitely wasn't a perfect 356, but we made the trip down on a school day when both the kids were in school. We hit the road and went down to Dover. It was down in Dover.
Okay.
And we went down to this kind of damp looking warehouse by the coast, and it's kind of like one of those situations where it's like where you'd find like the bad guy in Fast and the Furious or whatever. It was like that kind of situation, like chains and stuff outside. But we went in, and it was just full of awesome cars, man. They had like rally cars and classic cars and tons of classic Porsches. And then in the corner, like it's almost cinematic, you had the light breaking through these windows, and you just had this white 356 like sat. And I was just like, there it is. And I went up to it, and I was like, right, there's inch thick filler on this panel. The door gaps were okay. I had a look underneath, and I was like, well, it's got some accident damage. The floors aren't great. But I was like, it's a sunroof model, which I really wanted. I really wanted I wanted a T1. And on first impressions, I was like, this is a T2 because it had the teardrop rear lights. So I was like, I'd like something a bit earlier. It was registered wrong as well. He'd registered it as a 58. The engine just stank of stale petrol. Like the oil was mixed with fuel, and it just wasn't a great car.
Right. Sorry, PJ. This is a classic dealer, or is it someone's private collection, private car?
It's a dealer.
It is a dealer. Okay.
Yeah. They'd been very honest with the advert or whatever, but so I loved it because it's my dream car. But I actually walked away. We decided not to go for it. I kind of tried to see where it'd go with the price, and I was like, this is still too expensive for what it needs doing. And I had another friend that had been to view it and passed on it as well, and he had initially viewed it when it was like £15,000 more than it was advertised at that point.
Okay.
And so we. So
it took a while to sell, did it?
Yeah, I think it'd been a little while. I think just because it wasn't a running, driving vehicle. It had an engine and everything was there, but it just wasn't what most people would be looking for if they were looking for a 356.
Right. So you've got it's a well-worn 356. It's got lots of filler. It's got bodywork. It's got a bit of damage. It has rust.
Yeah.
It's
some rust. Yeah, it did have rust.
It's just a turning motor, free turning motor. I love that. Is it free turning motor, not running motor? Is that what they call it?
Something like that. It can be hand cranked or whatever.
Yeah. How was the interior? How was the condition of the interior?
So the interior is all right. It was actually, I've still got the interior in there.
Okay.
It was, again, bearing in mind my previous vehicle was a rat-infested Volkswagen. Going into this, again, felt a bit like luxury. But...
Sorry, what was the deciding thing, though, that made you walk away? When you went down and look at it, and what was the thing that made you think, I can't do it with this one?
I just thought it needed a bit too much for the price it was priced at.
Okay.
I thought to myself, this is going to be... I had actually gone into this thinking, I don't want another project, because the last one, the split window Beetle, was 5 years of a project for a car that essentially hadn't had any paint work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that... well, it had paintwork underneath, I tell a lie. But from the outside, it didn't look like a restored car. So I didn't want another project. I wanted a running good car. And from just looking at the engine, I knew that engine hadn't run for ages, and it was going to need work. So we walked away. We drove away, and then about an hour later, I got a phone call saying, would you do it if I dropped the price to this? And I think initially I said no again. And then by the time I got home, I got another phone call, and he said I could do it delivered to your house for this amount. And I said, right, let me call you back. And I spoke to June, and she was like, well, it's our dream car, so you do what you want to do. And then I said, okay, let's do it, and immediately had buyer's remorse, but I was extremely excited.
So it was still on the high side then? It was still on the high side. See, I don't know. I'm pretty vague here. I don't know the prices of 50. It's a 57, right? You said is it the same year?
Yeah,
as
it's a 57. Yeah, it's a 57 T1.
So the price range of 57 T1s in the UK now range from where to where? Are they 912 prices, or they're higher? They're higher, right?
Well, I mean, I'm still a bit confused about 912 prices because...
it seems they're all £50,000 now in the UK. I don't know. It doesn't matter what condition. It's £45,000 or £39,000.
I mean, I bought my 912 for something like early 20s. And, like now I was looking at another one and someone was asking like 80 grand. And I'm like, what's going on? But I understand the value in them. I think they were probably just undervalued before. But anyway, sorry, I digress. The 356, I think it was extremely fairly priced in the end. It was the cheapest. I tell a lie. There was a cheaper one that I missed that was probably slightly better car, but not a sunroof model.
Okay.
I wasn't quick enough on it. And I believe this was fairly priced. Still had loads of room to what I saw was the maximum value it could be worth. And even now, after all the work that's been done, I could still get it painted and have change on profit. So.
Okay. let's get onto that actually, because people like to know, and I don't, I'm not talking about dollar figures here, but you bought the car. When did you buy the car? What year? How long ago?
I bought the car in 2019.
2019.
No. Was it?
So only 2 years ago. All right.
Yeah.
So you bought the car. How much? I'll let you look at your notes and have a look. But so you've got the value of the car. How much have you put into the car? Have you put 50% of the value in the car to get it the way you want it? Have you put 25% of the value of the car?
Yeah. Yeah, about that, I'd say. Part of the, some of the cost was building a new engine for it. We decided to just get rid of the motor that was in it. I part X'd it against the new build.
Okay, it wasn't matching numbers then, your car, the engine, the 356?
No, I did see. I didn't want a matching numbers car because I know that I was always going to ruin this car if it was.
Okay.
It was never going to be a stock car for me. I'm just not that person, really.
All right. So where do you source the engine from for the 356? So you say you're gonna change the engine. Is Flat Six Jack working on the car? Is he the one doing the work on the 356? How do you source another engine for a 356?
So actually, at this point, I think at the time I bought it, I think Jack was either at Lambo or something, but I had just come off of the back of Ease Autos building me that ridiculously cool custom motor for the split window Beetle.
Yeah.
And so I went back to Ian for this. Ian's always looked after me so well. And I would equally trust Jack with this project as well. I could have gone both ways, but I went back to Ian based off of what we'd done with the because it was already a 356 motor that was in the Patina Outlaw Bug. So, went back.
Yeah.
They did a banging job, the guys at Ease Autos, with that motor, the new motor. It's awesome. I haven't.
So where do they source that from in the UK? It's quite easy to source.
So the guy that was working with Ian, he had a stockpile of motors.
Okay.
And basically, so the new engine is built around a 356 SC or 912 engine. So
356 SC, so 90 horsepower, is it?
Yes. So it was the 912 engine. So around 100, I guess.
100.
What they put out?
Yeah.
No, they put out 90-ish, don't they, on a good day? And so with all the work that's been done, you have to forgive me. I'm not very good at technical stuff.
No, that's okay. Neither am I. I just know that I just always thought the 356C, I remember, was the Super 90, isn't it? Isn't that what it has on the back? Super 90.
Yeah.
It was 90 horsepower.
Yeah. It started with the new motor started with 90 brake, but after what we did to it, we think it's pushing over 100 now.
Okay, so what did you do to the 356? Because I know the listeners want to know. What are the things you actually have done to the car in the last 2 years?
So it's had some welding. It needed. It's kind of again after such a long project previously, I wanted to have a car I could drive and not worry about stone chips and stuff. So, it got the necessary welding done. Then it went off to PRS 356 to have the chassis and gearbox sorted. So it had a gearbox rebuild, and when I had it, it was on. When I bought it, it was on like disc brakes, but like narrow pattern. So what like a 911 or a 912 would have. But I wanted to go back to wide 5. So we did a new disc brake conversion from CSP, which is again a company I knew from VWs.
Okay.
And lowered the whole car and basically got it ready for like fast road use. And then engine wise, again, so the 912 engine, full flow oil, modified the fan and the tinware, etc. Billet crank pulley, 85 mil big bore pistons and barrels to bring it up to 1680 cc. Weber 40 IDF carbs, basically a load of modified stuff, really. NASCAR spec push rods and stainless steel Abarth style 4-tip exhaust.
Okay, and the wheels and suspension?
So lowered on lowered all round. Only a little bit though. I've not slammed that car at all.
Yeah. It looks
and that's
fantastic,
on-
by the way. I mean, on your Instagram, I have to say,
Thank you
it
very
really
much.
does.
Thank you.
It does look good. There's something about the white
Cheers,
too,
man.
and the white. I want to get to the paintwork when you finish this bit, but there is something about the white, and it's also like Nick's 912 in white too. I don't know. There's a trend
Yeah,
here.
I like white cars. Yeah, so it's lowered on conies, all round coney shocks, and it's just got stock wheels. I had to source some again. Just friends from the VW scene helped me out with that. They helped me find the bits I needed for that, so that's really cool.
Yeah, so it's got the steel, the traditional steel wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that look.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have wheels like in my loft that would have suited it, but I just wanted to go with something stock.
Yeah.
Stockish. I'd like to get something wider for it though. I wouldn't mind some wider wheels, but in the same look, something stock looking, but just slightly wider.
The white one with the bonnet straps. Did you put the bonnet straps on, or is that someone else's car? That's your car, is it?
That's my car. Yeah, you're looking on Instagram.
Yeah. So you've added the leather
so the hood
straps, the hood straps.
Yeah. We added those. Again, slightly outlaw looky, slightly race car. I want to use it on track days. I want to do hill climbs and stuff with it. So like amateur.
Yeah, looks good.
climbs.
You got the wire on the lights. You've got the leather straps. Yep. It's got a nice. It's got a really nice stance at the front, hasn't it? It really does have a great stance. And I said this about when I was talking to Todd as well. You know, it does have a great stance. So tell me the relationship again between your number and Todd's number. Todd from Stone City Outlaw.
Yeah, so I heard him saying that his was one of the last T1s, and so I kind of was like, oh, I know mine is as well. And like I think he said his was built on like the 6th of September or something from memory.
I can't remember.
And then mine was built on the 11th, and I think there was my chassis number is the last 3 digits is 632. And then the last one they did with the T1 stuff was 692. So it really was near the end of the run for that shape.
Wow,
in particular.
that's quite crazy, isn't it? You know, you and Todd have both told your story, and your cars are so close in number.
Yeah,
you
man.
know, like
I said to him, they probably were on the same boat to America.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Weird. I thought
it could be the same person that built the cars as well. That's the thing, you know, at the same time, probably in the same week.
True.
The same week. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There they are sitting in those old photos that you see on the 356s on the Porsche production line, you know?
Yeah, man.
Which is
bizarre,
fantastic.
isn't it? Such a small world.
So what else is planned for the 356? What else are you going to do to it? Is there anything else planned?
I mean, I'd like to carry on with the interior. I'd like to do some speeds to seats, because the seats that are on it, they need work anyway. The seats that are in it, they need work anyway. They lean to one side. They're like it's a love-hate relationship. They're quite comfortable, but at the same time, like the positioning of them is dog. Like it's just I'm sure if I rebuilt the seats it would be fine, but I just want that racy.
But there's some great aftermarket speeds to seats Porsche seats now, isn't there? I see those companies on Instagram for the 912 and stuff. And I can't remember the guy. I know there's a guy in California that someone else on Owner's Stories got the seats for his. Andrew from 911 South got some seats for his 993 from. I think it was someone in California that has seats as well. And then I see that guy on Instagram that always pops up that they've got the Speedster type seats as well. So there's obviously a lot of people out there making them. I'm not sure how much they cost, but they look fantastic.
Oh man, they're expensive. If you want steel or aluminium ones, or aluminum if you're in the States.
But PJ, I really like those images when you see a 356 and it's got that carpet, you know, that wool type original carpet that people put in the restored
on the backs.
Yeah, it looks that looks fantastic, doesn't it? It looks really, really cool.
Yeah, man. My interior is, I think Paul at PRS was like, it just smells of cheap interior. I was like, I'm fine with that. It still smells better than the mice. So
what's on the horizon then? You've got the 356. You've got your dream car. What's on the horizon? Anything else?
No, really. This 356, I remember when I made the choice to get it, I was sat writing my will. And I was like, I was being asked, like, which cars are you going to give to your kids? And like, one was getting a restored Beetle and the other was getting the rat's nest. And I was like, this doesn't seem fair. And I was like, they're going to have to go through all of these cars, bearing in mind, I think at the time there was 5 of them. And I was like, I just want to get one car that I can really identify with. And I don't want any more projects after that. But even now, I'm still looking online at 911s and 912s and 914s. And so, it never stops, does it?
There's plenty of rusted old 914s for sale. I always see them coming up. That would be a big project though, the 914, wouldn't it, to do a 914? I mean, some of them are a mess. Some of them are a mess. So do the girls? What are your girls' favorite car? They love the 356, or they like the Beetles better?
See, my eldest one loves the 63 Beetle. But in saying that car lives with a permanent cover over it so that they can't scratch it. The first thing my youngest did when the 356 came in was run a Hot Wheel down the whole wing. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that I don't have a restored car. Like, after we finish this podcast, I'm going to go pick her up from nursery.
Okay.
It's a beautiful day outside. And it's like, the teachers laugh because I pick her up. It's got 4-point harnesses as well. So she's really strapped in.
Very nice.
But from the outside, you can't even see there's a child in there. She's just so small that she's right down there.
It just looks like you're talking to yourself all the time.
Exactly.
So tell me about the car shows. What are these car shows that you've organized or are still organizing? I know Nick mentioned to me that you helped him with his classic for carers thing that he does, that you did some of the design and that for him. But you said someone told me, or you told me before we started, that you've done some car shows as well. Where are they?
Yeah, so those initially started at my work when we were having a meeting, brainstorming how to get new people into a golf course, because people see a golf course and they go, kind of, is it going to be snooty? Am I going to be welcomed? And, we were really struggling to get new people into the venue. So I pitched it. I was like, well, why don't we do a car show? And they're like, well, we don't know of anyone that does a car show on a golf course. So I was like, well, here's Pebble Beach.
Exactly. I was going to say that's a perfect setting for it.
I was like, and obviously they all know, because they're all into golf. They're all like, Pebble Beach. Yes, I know Pebble Beach. So, they were absolutely buzzing about that. So I was like, okay, well, let's do one. And, the first one was a success. The second one was a success, but man, we had such a heat wave. We were literally, the night before, we were filling up the golf ponds because we used the actual golf course for the event with a hose. Like, it was drained to the fact that it looked like a desert. I was like, we can't do that.
What's the show called, PJ? Yeah. What's the show called? Tell the listeners what it's called.
It's called Classics at the Clubhouse. But we had to cancel it obviously last year because of COVID, which was a massive shame because, we'd worked super hard on it at that point already. We'd done a lot of building work to expand it. And it's a bit of a disappointment, but it is what it is.
So is there a chance there'll be one this summer, or were you still going to hold off just in case the restrictions?
I'm hoping. I've yet to talk with everyone at work about it. Because, I'm also supposed to have been getting married as well, so I've kind of been working out whether to do that. So that's priority, right? No, never. And then my wedding was supposed to only have been like a week after the last Classics at the Clubhouse, so everyone was joking that I hadn't paid any attention to the wedding, and all I was doing was working on the car. So
the 356 is the wedding car?
That was the idea, man. but yeah, man. I mean, the 356 project was just like dead in the water from COVID, just because everyone shut down. Like, it was supposed to be very quick.
So we have a lot of listeners in the UK. Is there somewhere they can go and is there a website for this car show that you have, or is there a Facebook page? Or
Classics at the Clubhouse has an Instagram as well, which is just at Classics at the Clubhouse. We do have a website. We also do monthly meets down there as well on Thursday night, called the Thursday Night Roll Up.
Okay.
Which is the one which Nick came to, Nick and Jack, and I showed them around. And then Nick very kindly put us in touch with Haggerty, who agreed to sponsor the event going forward, which is cool.
Fantastic.
So got to thank him for that. It was very kind. But yeah, unfortunately, it didn't happen last year. So
okay.
but yeah, check out our Instagram and
Classics at the Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think everyone should check that out, and I'll put the link. I'll get the link off PJ, and I'll put it in the podcast, and I'll also put it on the audio version of this podcast that goes on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to see it, just look in the description, and the link will be there if you haven't caught it. That's great, PJ. We've gone way over time today, and I always like to keep the podcast. No, it's fine. It's not a problem at all. It's been good. I know I'm not sure if you have to get somewhere, but we've gone over time. Anything else you want to tell the listeners?
No. I mean, for me personally, I'd just like to give a shout out to everyone that helped me with the cars over the years. People that gave up their time to help me find cars or work on cars, and people that still, our community is growing. The car community is growing. I don't know whether that's just because it's particularly fashionable. And all I can say is it is a fantastic thing to be involved in Porsches and air-cooled cars. Like, I just think there is a family growing there, and I'm very proud of that. So.
Yeah, I have to say, and I mean, I'm guessing this is the same in the US, but because as I said to you, I spent a lot of time because we have a flat in London. I've met so many people. I don't even have a 911 or a 912 or anything in the UK, but I feel so connected to the UK community now. From now speaking to you and speaking to Jack and speaking to all the other people in the UK that reach out to me. The community in the UK for Porsche is really strong, and classic cars is very, very strong.
It's massive.
The Porsche community in general is just fantastic, and I know that's the same in the US and Australia as well, New Zealand. Everyone's got everyone's got their little strong culture, and it's great, and it is growing. And I think because of COVID, it has actually got stronger. And maybe it's because we are all connecting, and we're connecting, online and stuff. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, sorry. Yeah,
no, go on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny how you mentioned Jack, Flat Six Jack, and the people that are now connected through all of us through Jack. Like, I've got a guy called John down the road, John Reed, who's a customer of Jack's, and John came along to Classics at the Clubhouse. I didn't know him at the time. Him and me then became, he introduced me to a guy called Jake, or Jake introduced me to him. They already knew Jack. We all managed to find each other. And then obviously Nick and Sunburnt Lobster Jack, they're now coming along. And, regularly, I used to see John's car out and about. I've got photos of it on my Instagram like 4 years ago or whatever. Yeah. And then you start to become friends with those people. We, before COVID anyway, we were all meeting fairly regularly, going to events, oil cooled and stuff. Yeah. It's brilliant. I've got a community here that I never had a few years ago. And fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah. I want to see all these cars in the flesh. I want to see these cars. I want to see your car. I want to see Sunburnt Lobster. I want to see Nick's 912, Flat Cap Driver's Blue 912,
I saw the Lobster the other night. I was doing some filming for Jack.
What's it like to sit in it?
I didn't sit in the car, but man, like, I poked my head in it and I was like, this is amazing. That interior is, it's better in real life, man, as well. Like, I mean, it looks amazing in photos, but you see it in real life and you're like, I wish my house looked like this. Do you know what I mean?
Look, I hate red as a color. I'm one of these people that really hate red, but there's something about that interior that just works.
Oh man,
really
it's rad.
It just
the
works.
Exterior of that car as well is incredible as well. It's like fantastic patina.
The one thing I didn't touch on actually, but talking about patina, PJ, is that you haven't done anything to the paintwork of your 356, right? You've left it original.
No, I've left it. Yeah,
it's the original paint, or it's been resprayed at one point.
No, it's had like a horrible cheap paint job at some point. No drips though, but it's just I love that. Like, this car wasn't a car that, you get those quintessential barn finds, you get those amazing stories where it's been sat for, I think, 45 years, 50 years, or like my previous split bug. But
yeah.
this car wasn't that. This car was driven a lot. It was not loved. It was not well looked after. It was, the guy said when he found it, or the guy who bought it found it, it was just on the side of the street with its bumper hanging off. And, you can see, if you look at the photos, you can see where that bumper had impacted on the bodywork and was sat there. And it wasn't like that. And even the guy that I bought it off said he only got it because someone else turned it down.
Okay.
Like, they bought a job lot of cars, and that little 356 was just, it's neither here nor there.
It's great. It's a great story. You started off in VWs. You started off. No, it's a great story. You started off on the air cooled. I mean, I like it. And you've ended up with your dream car. Man. Let's call it your dream car because it is. And it looks fantastic.
It is my dream car.
Yeah, and everyone should check out PJ's Instagram, PJ underscore Gibbons, GIBBONS, correct?
Yeah,
on Insta. So check that one out. It'll be in the link of this. It'll be in the description of this podcast. I always like to ask the question, and I know we're pushing on time here, but I always like to ask you a question. You got your 356, or you've got your 912, you've got your VW. Mm-hmm. Roads in the UK, what's one of your favorite roads to drive on where you actually really connect with the road and connect with the car?
Oh man, I'm really lucky. Like, I live in an area where I can turn left or turn right out of my house, and even the drive to school to pick up my kids is a really lovely drive.
That's good.
Yeah, I live right on the border of Oxfordshire and Berkshire.
Okay,
on
nice.
the river, a place called I don't know if I should say where I live. I don't know if it's safe or not, but so I won't.
I know the area where you're talking about. It's a lovely area. Yeah.
I live in England, but I've literally got roads everywhere. I'm not that far from the Cotswolds. I live in an area of outstanding natural beauty, so I'm surrounded by woodland roads and everything. But
fantastic.
There's a particular road I do like to drive, like particularly if I'm kind of doing a test run. And that's over near Wallingford. I don't know, lost it now. But basically, it's a fairly substantial A road. It's not even a substantial A road. I'm lying when I say that. But it sweeps all through the hills, and there's a point where you can see what used to look like an old Anglo-Saxon fort or something.
Fantastic.
And, I live in the area of like Watership Down, that kind of area, and man, there's always something beautiful to see. And sometimes you get lost, and you'll find something that you never knew was there. So
okay,
just explore.
Sounds great. What I think you should organize, and I did bring this up with Jack, actually, because Jack was telling me the story how him and Nick went to Stuttgart, and then they left Stuttgart and they said they were going to buy air-cooled. They were going to get an air-cooled, both of them, and now they ended up with an air-cooled. I think a great event to organize would to get all these classic guys from the UK, tie it into your clubhouse thing, and go to Stuttgart, test the reliability of the 356, test the reliability of the 356, and take it back to Stuttgart, take it back to, to Germany.
Me and my coworker that does classics at the clubhouse with me, we've been planning a road trip for years, literally years. We were going to go do the Nürburgring, Nordschleife, Stuttgart, going to go by Reims for some photos, maybe down to Le Mans. Whatever we've been planning it for a long time, and unfortunately it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I'd love to organize a whole crew.
Yeah, especially being you're a photographer as well, right? So because of the the amount of
and film.
Everything you could get out of that would be fantastic. The memories from that.
I'd love to. Yeah, great suggestion. I'd love to do that with a bunch of friends. So it'd be wicked. All
right, PJ, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I know it's a Saturday. Oh, it's a Friday, sorry. I always think it's Saturday because I'm in the Middle East. It's the first day of the weekend here, but it's Friday. Thanks for taking the time. Great to hear your story and great to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you talking to me, and I'm sorry if I've gone on a bit too much today, but it was great fun.
No, not at all. I think everyone's going to enjoy this one, and it's a great, it's a great car story. I mean, there's a lot in there. I mean, there's a lot in there, and it's passionate, and you've ended up with a great car. You really have, and I like it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone. So that was PJ coming in from London, talking about his car journey, his 356. And that's about it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.